Hello everyone, Ember here, and welcome back to a new video. In this one I'm going to be taking a look at a really fun deck challenge that I've been trying out in Expanded. So basically what this deck challenge is that you can only play a deck comprising of Pokemon from a single generation. So for example, for this one I went with Sun and Moon because Expanded only goes up to Sun and Moon, so there is still a decent amount of Sun and Moon cards that are still in Expanded that are available, which is pretty cool. As for standard, there's kind of like less and less Sun and Moon cards, plus Sword and Shield was too recent. Could have done X, Y, I guess, but I thought I'd just leave it. So you can do the other generations. I've made a list of like all the potential decks I'd make from different generational Pokemon. But for this video, I just wanted to do Sun and Moon, and more in particular, Decidueye. So as you can see, we're just playing Pokemon from Gen 7, so I have Decidueye as the main Pokemon here. Now, I would recommend if you want like an extra challenge for this one, I would say like just don't bother with playing Pokemon V and GX because they'll very quickly dominate things. But if you play single prize, one gen only, can get a bit tedious, but you do have to come up with some pretty creative ways, especially to draw cards and do extra damage. So basically, Deep Forest Camo therefore won't be a super strong ability, but I still like the attack Spitting Arrow. Plus I wanted to go for something fairly simplistic for the very first challenge. As for the other Pokemon in the deck though, I am running Shinotic with the ability to Illuminate. This card isn't particularly great. Now there is like a Torterra of course and a Grotto. Like the Grotto has this same ability, and then Torterra is a stage 2 which has got a pretty decent attack in a grass deck. But because Torterra is not from Gen 7, not from Sun and Moon, basically we just have to play Shinotic, so it has the ability to Illuminate, so we can search our deck for grass Pokemon. Just helps out a bit with consistency. Also playing 4 of the new Rowlet because I decided that if you exclusively played generations from the era they were introduced, that would just be way too awkward, and it would also mean that it wouldn't really work necessarily as well because of course some of the older gens were in a lot older sets like the Diamond and Pearl era, so I thought it would just make sense to allow players to basically pick up cards from like other eras and put into that generation, if that makes sense. So like this Rowlet came around in a Sword and Shield set, but because the Pokemon itself is from the Sun and Moon era, I'm just playing the Rowlet. And I'm also playing Birdkeeper because I'm not actually sure where Birdkeeper was introduced, like in the game series, but I'm just going to say, for simplicity's sake, that Birdkeeper was also a Sun and Moon supporter. But basically, also have 2 Oranguru, which is going to be a bit of a support Pokemon with the ability Instruct, which is pretty nice. Now, as for the trainers, things do also get a bit interesting because I didn't want to do this initially, but I decided the best way I can do it was to kind of only use trainer cards, aka like characters from the Sun and Moon series. So Guzma, for example, instead of Boss's Orders, as well as characters like Professor Kukui from the main game series, as well as, Sophocles as like a main draw power, I guess. It's just a very simplistic way of doing it, and all these trainers did appear in the Sun and Moon era. You could, of course, change this if it's way too awkward. Like, I'm aware that some generations, like, hardly any of their gym leaders or characters were adapted into the TCG, or at least, into the current state of Expanded or Standard on TCG Live. But just, something worth bearing in mind if you want to make it, more of a challenge, I guess, and more faithful to that generation. But yeah, also Sun and Moon just has a really cool assortment of trainers as well, which I really like. Like Lily's Pokédoll, for example, I think is a really nice item card to have. Guzma's also just like a more advanced version of Boss's Orders that I really like. Just it's like switch one of your opponent's bench. So it is Gust, but you have to switch as well. So it's not just straightforward Boss's Orders every turn, what you want kind of thing. So I like it in that sense. As for energy, I'm just going for basic energy. I'm sure like you could just play any special energy from any TCG era. I don't think it really matters all that much, to be honest. But because I'm not like running any other Pokemon that rely on double turbo energy or anything, I can just get away with playing basic grass energy. But as for other Sun and Moon decks that I've thought about, because in truthful, this Decidueye just isn't that great and expanded. Like it used to be something special, I think, with Obstagoon, but right now it's kind of just a bit meh, especially with all the EX Pokemon running around. And this challenge is kind of supposed to be you versus someone else, hopefully, who will have a similar deck from either Sun and Moon or a different generation. And that's like one way of controlling it as well, making sure it's not too broken. But either way, this Decidueye, not the greatest. Have thought of some other Gen 7 decks though. One that popped to my mind was some sort of Beast Box maybe, or even just like Buzzwole with the Incineroar that increases damage by plus 30. There's also Primarina, which is okay from what I remember, could also use the Golisopod from Pokemon Go. That's a decent one as well. There's like Alone Duck Trio is actually not terrible. So there is like a lot of fun Pokemon that you could use for this challenge. I might do a video showcasing this deck or one of those other decks in Expanded. Actually, Passamian might be a better deck to showcase, but we'll see how that goes. But yeah, it's a bit of a fun challenge. It's obviously a little bit more of a pain, I guess, on TCG Live because you don't have access to the full Expanded. So you don't get access to like older cards that would have been really interesting. But sadly, we have to make do, and we just have to make do. Basically, it's a sad state of TCG Live. Can't really say much more on that, but either way, it's a very fun challenge. I'll probably do this again in the future, actually, for the different generations, especially for Gen 1 once we get 151. I've also got deck ideas for other generations. I've gone that far ahead, so let me know if you kind of like this style video. Maybe not as wonky as this. I'm aware it's very jumbled, to say the least, in terms of thoughts and ideas and what I'm trying to present here. But yeah, do let me know if this is the kind of thing that you would like to see more of in the future. If you have like any deck suggestions, if you even want to battle me with this kind of rule set, then that would be interesting. I'd be happy to do that for a video. So yeah, let me know what you think down below. And this has been Emma Power.